Hey everybody, welcome to Thursday. It's Friday Junior. That's nice. So don't forget that tomorrow you will take your Unit 3 test Part 2. It's really important to have that completed by 5 p.m. tomorrow. And I'll average Part 1 and Part 2 together to get your test grade for Unit 3. Sorry, I know my my dip of the day is not really appropriate, but I laughed really hard. I thought it was really funny, so I put it on there anyway. Okay, so today we're gonna do a review of graphing, some graphing lines like we did before the fall break, and then graphing inequalities, which we've been talking about this week. So let's move on over to Canvas here. Let's go to our modules page. Scroll to the bottom. So this it says quiz, don't freak out. Oh, you know what? I've locked it. I gotta unlock it real quick. I was like, where is it? Hang on, I'll be right back. Let me unlock it. Okay, so it says take the quiz, but this is just a way for me to get answers from you in Canvas. Don't think that it's an actual quiz. It's not, it doesn't have a time limit or anything. It's just an assignment. So what you're going to be given is you are going to be given an equation or an inequality. So each question's on a different separate page, and you're going to be asked to find these things right here. So what I think I want to do is I'm going to skip around. I want to work a couple of them with you. They're not too hard if it's solved for y. Because remember, you can just graph that in Desmos, and then it pretty much will give you the answers. You can click on them. It doesn't give you the slope, Desmos doesn't, but remember the slope is, if it's solved for y, it's always what's sitting right in front of x. So that's really cool. Now I'm not going to work number 1 because I think that's pretty straightforward for you because that one is solved for y. I don't want to work 2 either. 3, I want you to graph that one in Desmos. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start with question number 4. So again, these are examples. Your other ones are going to be just like this one. And I'm going to do number 4, and I'm going to find one more that I'm going to do with you. So let's look at this first question right here. So you're going to need some scratch paper, show your work, and you're going to upload it at the end. So the first thing to notice here is this one is not in the form y all by itself on one side. This one does not have y isolated. So it's really important that we solve for y and get y by itself. So what we need to do is we need to solve this from y. So I'm going to pause the video again while I get my iPad brought up, and then we'll solve this one. Okay, I've got my iPad ready, and I hope you have your scratch paper ready because you're going to need to upload a picture of that at the end. So here is our equation. So all I've done is I've written it over here on my iPad. So because y is not by itself, that's what we need to do first. We've got to solve for y. So remember, the first thing we do is we like to draw our line. Really important. So we're trying to get that y term by itself, so we're always going to add or subtract the x term first. So I see that we have 3 x's, so they're positive. So I'm going to do the opposite, which is subtract 3 x's, because 3 minus 3 is 0. Those are gone. That's good. So I'm going to subtract 3 on the other side as well. So I'm left with 4y. Bring down that symbol, and I have 12 minus 3x. It doesn't matter which order I write them in. I'm just going to write them down because remember, they're not like terms. We can't combine them on that side. So now I look and say, well, what is in front of y? Well, it's a 4. So I need to divide everything by that 4. 4 divided by 4 becomes 1. That's what I wanted, 1y. Now, did I divide by a positive number or a negative number? Well, we divided by positive 4, didn't we? So we don't have to worry about flipping that symbol. So I'm going to go ahead and write my final symbol down. Well, 12 divided by 4 is 3. And then I have minus 3 divided by 4. You know what? I'm just going to leave it as that fraction, as negative 3 over 4. I'm not going to simplify that as a decimal or anything. I'm just going to leave it just like that. So here we go. We have our final inequality right there. Y is less than or equal to 3 minus 3/4 x. Okay, so I'm going to minimize this. We're going to go back to our problem now. Okay, so I'm wondering if I can, let's see if I can make this smaller. Yeah, so that way we can look at it. I don't know if it's going to actually, it's not really doing what I wanted to do there. That's okay. Okay, So we need to know the y-intercept. Well, if we want to know our y-intercept, then remember your y-intercept is not the number in front of x. That's where your slope is. When y is on one side by itself, your y-intercept's the other number, not the one in front of x, which is negative 3/4. It's the other piece. It doesn't matter if your x term's at the beginning or the end. We're looking for, remember, we want it in the form y, and it's usually an equal sign. It works with inequalities too, mx plus b. So wherever that number is by itself, that's your y-intercept. So for this one, we could put that our y-intercept is, and you can type this as an ordered pair or as a number, but it is the ordered pair. Remember, anytime you're on the y-axis, your x value is 0. So 0, 3. Then it wants us to find the 0. So remember, think back to the vocabulary activity we did at the beginning of Unit 3. 0 is just another word for x-intercept. So 0 is an x-intercept. You might also see rate of change instead of slope. 0 means x-intercept. Slope means rate of change. Rate of change and slope. Those are interchangeable words. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, because I can't look at this and find my x-intercept, my 0, but I could look at it and find the slope. So let's find that. So remember, your slope is going to be the number in front of x. That's negative 3/4. So I'm going to go ahead and type that one in. Okay, now we can go also look and we can say, well, is it going to be a solid or a broken line? Well, my symbol has a line under it, right? So since my symbol has a line under it, it must be a solid line. Now we're asked to find the graph, which we're going to get from down here. We're going to match it with one of these graphs down here, which we might be able to do that knowing that it has a y-intercept of 0, 3 and a slope of negative 3/4. So we're going to use these pieces. Then if we find the graph, then we can hopefully find the 0 from our graph. So we're looking for one that has a solid line. And if we go back over here, we can ask ourselves, is it going to be shaded above or below our line? Well, it's y less than. So it's going to be a solid line less than shaded below the y-intercept. You think of it like that. So we're looking for a solid line shaded below. Can't be that one. Can't be that one. Can't be that one. Can't be that one. That's a dashed line. Oh, it's got to be J. Look, we have no other options. Solid line shaded below. What is this y-intercept? 3? Let's go back up to our problem. What was our y-intercept? 3. Perfect. So we know our graph is J. So now we can come back down here and we could say, well, what's the 0 then? What's the x-intercept of J? Well, our x-intercept is over here. It must be at 4. I can see it's crossing at 4. So our 0 is actually 4, 0. And that's why it's called a 0, because your y value at your x-intercept is 0. So now the last thing it's asking me on this one is the point negative 2, 4 in the solution set? Yes or no? So let's go back down to our graph and look at it. It's J, negative 2, 4. So I'm going to find negative 2. So I go over negative 2, up 4, which is right there. So I'm going to look and say, well, is that in the solution set? So is where my little arrow pointing right here, negative 2, 4, in the shaded area? Yes, it is. Then that means that our point, yes, is in the solution set. Okay, so that's how you're going to work these problems. This was one of the harder ones because we had to solve for y. Some of them you don't have to solve for y. So let's go to question number 7. So question number 7, it wants us to find the y-intercept, the x-intercept, which is also a 0, the slope, which is also the rate of change, and then tell them which graph it is. Now, because this is an equation, Desmos will actually graph these. So let's try to graph it in Desmos and see what it says. Okay, so we have y minus 1 equals 1/4 times, whoops, I have to arrow over here. Don't put your x in the denominator. 1/4 x plus 4. Whoops, actually plus 4, like this. Now, it didn't graph it, did it? It's giving me this exclamation in the triangle. That's because y is not by itself on one side of the equation. So there's a couple of ways to do this, but the first thing we have to do to identify all these parts is we need to get y by itself. So I'm looking over here at my equation. I've written it down on my iPad here. I'm going to draw my line. So I need to solve for y. Well, look, I have y minus 1. So the only thing that's keeping me from having y all by itself on one side is this minus 1. So if I can cancel out that minus 1, I'm good. So what if I add 1 to both sides? Well, negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Look, now I just have y by itself. But I still have all this stuff, 1/4 times x plus 4. Now that's one whole term because they're all things that are multiplied together. And then I can stick the 1 on the end over here. So be careful when you're moving just one constant, one number over. You really are just going to stick it on the end over there by itself. Now, we can simplify this even further, but here's the good news. Desmos will graph this for you right now. So you can either simplify it out further and then identify your slope and your y-intercept, or we can let Desmos graph it for us. So let's try that option. So now all I need to do is go back to Desmos, and all we did was move this minus 1 to the other side by adding 1 to both sides. So now it's going to graph my line for me. So this is good. I like this. I'm going to move this over a little bit. I can see I have some intercepts here. So it's crossing my y-axis at 2. It's crossing the x-axis at negative 8. So there is my 0, or my x-intercept. Here is my y-intercept. So we know our y-intercept is 2, our x-intercept is negative 8. So we can come back over here. So we said our y-intercept is 2, our x-intercept is negative 8. And you could write those in ordered pair form as well. So we probably can go from there and we could find our graph, 2, negative 8. So we know and notice the shape of your line. It's increasing, so it's a positive slope and it's above the origin. So that's kind of important. So not this one, because this one's below the origin. Oh, it's this one right here. 2, crossing at negative 8, it's above the origin. I'm pretty sure it's G. Yep, it's got to be G. So my graph is G. So now all I need is the slope. So how do I find the slope? Well, there's 2 ways. We could go back to our graph, G, and we could count rise over run. We could find 2 good points and count rise over run. And you could do that if you want to. Or if you come back to your equation and you simplify it a little bit further, you would have your slope there. Because remember, we just need to look and see what's sitting in front of x. So in order to simplify this, I see I'm going to have to do some distributing here because I have some parentheses. So I have y equals, well, 1/4 times x is just 1/4 x. Then I would have 1/4 times 4. Well, 1/4 times 4 you could put in your calculator. That's going to be 1, positive 1. And then this 1 on the end is just sitting out there. Now I can simplify this even more. I could add these 1s together, but is that going to change the number that's sitting in front of x? It's not, is it? The number sitting in front of x is 1/4. So that is my slope. So if I come back over here, I now know my slope is 1/4. So that is that question completed. Now there's 11 questions total. Some of them, like this one, you're going to have to solve for y before you can graph them. Some of them are already going to be solved for y. A lot of the beginning questions are already solved for y. So pay attention to that. Is it solved for y? Is it not? Fill in all the pieces and be sure and match it to a graph. Okay? Some of these are going to be pretty easy, like the questions like, is it a solid or broken line? Look at your symbol. You can already look at your symbol here and tell, is it a solid or a broken line? Does it have a line under it? If it does, it's solid. If it does not have a line under the symbol, it's going to be a broken line. Okay, so finish these questions up. I will take a grade on this one, and it's going to tell you at the end the questions you got wrong. You can go back and reattempt them. And you can reattempt it as many times as you need to bring your grade up.